G'day, I'm Bruce. In this video I'm going to try and get this old Detroit powered Kenworth running and maybe driving. This is the second video on this truck. We had trouble with the engine trying to rev up all the time, so this time we're going to lift up the right hand tappet cover and have a look underneath there at the injectors. This is going to be touch and go whether we're going to be able to get this tappet cover off to have a good look in there. This is actually the drain for the turbo, for the oil on the turbo. If it's a straight pipe, it should come off easy, but if it's not a straight pipe, right, I'll have to undo it on the other end, I think, too. It's a pretty stiff piece of pipe. I'm going to have to cut this cable tie here. The wind here is just howling at about, gusting up to probably 40 knots, so I don't know how the sound's going to be on this video. Now, which way to go? Wow, what a long pipe. What a long piece of pipe on the end of the turbo. I didn't think I was ever going to get it. Right, I'll put this around here out of the way. This will be the big test, but we'll probably have to take this off out the way, I suspect. I'm just going to brush off some of the dirt around on the tappet cover around the edges. That alternator is very close to the tappet cover too. Throttle linkage is out of the way, turbo oil drain pipe's out the way. Now it looks like the alternator's got to be slackened off and pushed that way because there's only about 1/16 of an inch and about a 2mm clearance between the tappet cover and the alternator. So it'll be alternator next, I think, see if we can move it out the way. How much further back can that go? It can go a bit further, can't it? Right, I'll see if I can push that alternator back now. Right, that's giving us a little bit more clearance. Next thing will be this pipe on the side here. What have we got there? A couple of 7/16, I'd say. They're quite loose. Almost just had silicone holding it on. Look at that. Wire was just hanging by about one strand. Huh. Close. Might have to loosen that pipe off, loosen the exhaust pipe off, I think. Front two are working fine. I think the next one is. I'm just going to loosen off these two on the exhaust pipe, and I hope I can push the pipe up out the way a bit. Tap with a brass hammer. No way. No. That's loose, but all injectors are free. The cameraman's going along, looking at them all. They are all free, so I don't really know what's going on with that thing wanting to run away all the time. Well, we haven't got any heat with us because we weren't expecting to really pull this side off, because we looked at the other side and we thought the injectors were all free on both sides, because we could work that quite easily. So I think we have either a linkage issue or maybe a sticky governor from sitting. This machine's that old, it's still got full manual throttle linkage, not air. It looks like this bolt is very close to the exhaust system, which is hooked up to the throttle. That's hooked up to the foot pedal on the throttle, and we thought that may be stopping it coming back from an idle. It may be touching. If it is touching, it's just touching. So we may be able to adjust where that clamp is and turn this a bit and re-clamp it, and that might help it. I think I've found another problem here. It looks like the return spring on the throttle, it's just a mechanical throttle with levers right back to the governor box, and I'll get the cameraman to come around inside there, and it's got the end of the spring rusted off, because we were wondering why the throttle would not return. You see where it's got the end rusted off the spring. So that might be part of the trouble. See, it needs that hooked up to make sure that throttle will come back to return. This is actually the linkage coming from the throttle pedal, where I've got my finger there, you can see that, coming up to here. And we found out that the spring was rusted off. Now, this thing should be returning right back. and before it wasn't returning. Once we hooked up that linkage, it would not return. We thought it was hitting on the exhaust up where my finger is, but you can see that's at idle and that's at flat out. If you look down in there, you can see the plungers on each injector. They're all free, both sides of the engine, but the thing is still trying to run away. There's a mechanism inside the governor box that the moment it starts, see everything's on full throttle there now, sprung loaded, see, full throttle, and when it starts, it's supposed to twist that and bring these levers back to an idle along here, and it's not doing that. So that's start under full power, so I'm going to manually hold this back. If I hold it right back, it'll probably shut down, but if I can actually regulate that from here. This side here is hooked up to the other side via these horizontal rods, which in turn are hooked up to that governor box. And this is actually the throttle up here. You can see there's sort of, I can move one without the other basically. It feels like there's a spring in the governor box. We'll give it one more start where I control it at idle so it can't run away. With my hand on this here, I'm going to have that set back like that while the cameraman starts it, and then I'll be able to regulate the throttle from here. But I still think there's a problem somewhere in that governor box. I don't have all the facilities here, like you really need heat to try and get all these joiners apart on the exhaust system and where the exhaust comes off the turbo, all that sort of stuff. You really need heat to heat all that sort of stuff up to get it quite hot, and then spray it and then wriggle it around and probably have a rubber hammer there and probably tap it so you don't ding all the exhaust pipe up. Ready? Well, the cameraman was mucking around with the foot throttle inside the cab, and whatever happened, we don't know whether it had a stone stuck under the pedal or we don't know what was going on, but look at it there now. It's running perfectly there now, but I'll get the cameraman to go in and work the throttle. I'll stay on the outside here in case it wants to run away, and he can also push the emergency stop button inside if he has to. I'll put the rocker cover back on now. The cameraman thought the throttle pedal was holding down, and I'm still a bit unsure whether that was the problem or a sticky governor or both. We'll probably never know. This one's missed the mark. Right, that's on. We initially had it running on the outboard tank. I'm suspicious of its fuel pump. Now it's got prime, I'll hook up the original fuel system if we are going to try and drive it. We'll give it another start now and see if it keeps its prime after being changed over. We've checked the fuel, the lines and changed the filter in the previous video. Nothing like the sweet sound of a two-stroke GM, just idling away there like a Swiss watch running. going to push the stop button over on this side. You must have the key turned on or the stop button won't work. Right, it looks like it's building air. We've got about, it is leaking back now, but it was up close to 90 psi. Oil gauge works, tacho works. They want it moved from this spot, so we might put that pipe back on the inlet on the turbo and then see if we can build up some more air pressure again. Might even try and rig up that spring, see if we can rebend the end of that spring where it's rusted off and rig up that spring on the foot throttle, so we're going to be sure it's going to return if we go to drive it. We want it so it's safe. Beautiful, nice and clean. I say it's always nice to put the clamps back on the same way. All the way around. Pull my strides up a bit. Well, most people would probably turn the camera off and you'd probably never ever see that part. But on my channel you usually see these things that are hard to do. A lot of people, they probably think, oh, we don't want to show that. That took too long. But here you see the good, the bad and the ugly. I got it in the end. Right, these clamps. Try and put them back in the same spots. Screwdriver. That one was sitting right there. Clamps are nice and free now for the next person. Remember my way of thinking, always think of the next person that's got to come along and do some of these. Some of these jobs are easy, but some of them are very difficult. Righty-o, and this one here must have been sitting about there. Sometimes you can tell too, when they're loose you can't tell exactly where they've been sitting, but as you tighten them up and you start to move them around a little bit, you'll find a loose spot, wherever that loose spot is. I think it's right there. Tighten up a little bit more and there's a pretty good chance it's going to seal up very well if you put it back on. Yep, there we are. It's just going to clonk clonk. That's right where it was sitting. Do them up firm. These will be the same. That one was sitting right there. Just move that backwards and forwards. And about there. I think that's it right there. Terrible windy day. This one here must have been sitting there. It was blowing that hard, the cameraman's actually got the bonnet and the mud guards strapped down to the bull bar so it can't come back and blow down on top of us. Right, they're right. That's right. That's right. That's right. We started off, we thought we might undo these. That looked pretty difficult. Looks like I've done them back up. That's it. It's like spring steel. It's like a piece of wire rope. Just going to take the battery terminals off in case this wire on the spring shorts out. I should have it proper. I need a 12 and a 13. And some glasses would be handy too. Right, we've got that out the way now. That means if this wire comes down and touches that positive, we won't have a big shower of sparks. I'm just going to try and tidy this up a little bit if I can. I don't know where it came from. It feels like a piece of wire rope. Got 3 here. Might be better off running with these. I'll try and run them through there if I can do it. I'll try and run it the other way then. It's always best to wind them tight on the first couple of turns, up nice and close, and then as you get a bit further away you can run a bit more with the little bit more with the same direction of the wire. That's what I've found anyway. That'll probably do on there, I reckon. Just got to find somewhere to put the other end now. Run all that back through the other way. I think it used to go onto the side of a panel there, but just would have had a hole in it on the engine where the cab mount is, but it's rusted off, so I'll move forward and see what I can find to put it onto. This is just an idea to try and make sure it's got some sort of a throttle spring. It's got the end rusted off it. But if I can get it a little bit tighter than that, probably about like that if I can do it. trying to get it underneath that washer if I can do it. I need a screwdriver to try and hold it up. How much tension's on that spring? Probably not enough. I'm just going to have to get the cameraman to give me a hand with this, or I'm not going to be able to get it. It's got that. Well, it looks like it's going to return. You wouldn't do it on a proper registered road truck, but I suppose if you're out in the middle of the desert or somewhere and something like that went wrong, I suppose you'd gladly do it to get back home again. It's mainly if anyone in the yard here starts this thing up that's not just going to scream and scream and scream, and they're going to, you know, wonder what's going on. On the linkages side, it will return to idle. I'm just going to put these negative battery terminals back on again because I could see danger. I like watching Jay Pay Dirt over in America. Jeff, his name is. Some of the things he does on his own with D9 Caterpillar dozers and that are just fantastic. I really take my hat off to someone like that can work like that. And every now and then he'll do something that's pretty dangerous. He'll have a D9 jacked up there or something that you think, wow, that's pretty dangerous. And then he'll play this little tune, Shake Hands with Danger. And I think, yeah, well, exactly right. Shake hands with danger is pretty true. But he's got a wonderful channel. He's got a big heap of gear to watch. He's a real action man. And some of the stuff he does, pushing big rocks up on the mountainsides and scrapers shifting mountains of dirt, everything is really interesting to watch Pay Dirt. He's got a really good channel and he's an interesting man. He's got a good sense of humour. In some ways, Jay Pay Dirt, alias Jeff, reminds me a bit of my old friend Shane. Shane could just go ahead and work on a 40-tonne Moxie, 6-wheel drive off-road truck, pull the transmission out on his own, fix it up and put it back in. Another time he had a D7E, transmission was playing up, he pulled that transmission out on his own. He was working on the thing and he goes to put it back together, and he realised whoever had last worked on the transmission didn't put these bungs in the end of these shafts. And he said, well, the apprentice probably did that job, and when he was finished he probably just threw the bungs in the rubbish bin. And Shane was smart enough to figure out that that was the problem. So, extremely smart bloke, good at looking at diagrams, pull a power shift transmission down. Yep. One time they had an 861 Volvo, first off-road 6-wheel drive truck they had. She was a bit of an old beast, and he had the nephews burning around on this thing, working for him there at one stage. The back wheel fell off at one stage. That was always a bit of a joke. But the power transmission was doing this stunt where it was in first gear and second gear at the same time. So it was straining to move along. Anyway, Shane was smart enough, he pulled the transmission down. One of the clutch packs had actually slipped. You've got a fibre plate, a steel plate, and a fibre plate and a steel plate. One lot of being driven on a drum on the outside, the other lot of being driven on a shaft on the inside, just like on an automatic transmission on a car basically. Anyway, Shane measured everything up, and there was a minimum tolerance and a maximum tolerance. And all these steel plates had all gone buckled. They had all gone warped from heat from slipping. So anyway, he puts new clutches and everything and puts it back together again. This thing did exactly the same thing. Shane had to go and pull it all back out again. And he looked at it and he put it all back together, replaced all those parts that were all buckled and bent from too much heat. Anyway, Shane got to thinking, I wonder is it down on pressure, hydraulic pressure to hold the clutch pack tight. Sure enough, Shane stuck a gauge on it, figured out where the release valve was. It's at the maximum pressure, adjusted the release valve up to the required pressure, never ever did it again. So, you know, Shane did some pretty fantastic things in his day, and he was a really, really hard trier. Like a lot of things in life, there's a sequence of events. And if you try and shortcut some of those events, you're only making life difficult. It's just like that little thing there. Trying to put that air cleaner in with that in the way. Just undo it and take it out of the way. Right, water shouldn't get into that. That's tight, it won't drop out, we're right to go down. I'm just going to pull that thing out. These have sort of got an over-centre idea. There we go, made in America I'd reckon. The bull bar was down when we arrived. As you can see, there's a fair bit of rust and scale laying in there, so I don't know how long it's been down for. Let's say someone's had a go at working on it. It's one of these days when the wind's blowing one way, then the next thing it's blowing the other way. Push a bit of this back the other side, I think. Looks like the bolts are going to go through there, so we'll let it back down. Those wires have got to come forward. But we'll pull it back down. Now we've got to figure out whether that bolt, there was a bolt here somewhere. That one snapped off, so this one's got to go into here. So everything's looking pretty crusty looking. Right, we're going to chip a bit of that rust off. Luckily we've got glasses on. The rust is fairly flying. I'd say it's been sitting there for a fair while. Mother Nature takes over pretty quickly when it comes to rust. Righto, we're going to go for the oil. Plenty of oil there. Put a bit more along on it. Not going to do any harm. Plenty of oil. Always think of the next person that's going to come along. This truck's going to be for sale soon. Any parties are interested, try and make contact with us. The people that have got it will probably might even be able to help arrange for some transport or something maybe, I don't know. Feels pretty tight there. I don't know how well that's all lined up, but we won't know until we try. I think it started. I wonder how many times this bolt's been done up and undone. If only it could talk. Right, should be tight enough. I guess the next person that buys it will probably undo all that and check the engine out probably before they buy it. Have a look at this thing, it looks like a big duck. The cameraman said, surely that's not a Kenworth part? I said, no. I said, it looks like a duck to me. There you go, you can see there it's slowly building up air, which is required to release the brakes. Reduction shift, only in low range. Yeah, that's supposed to lock it. I think it's been sitting that long, it's actually sunk into the ground with all the wet weather and everything we've had over the last few years. It's just gone down. We really need something to try and dig out behind the front wheels so we can sort of reverse out. The front wheels are fairly well down. that was an adventure for sure. But the way things were going, it was stuck that far into the ground, I thought, well, we've got no chance. We didn't think about bringing any shovels or any gear, but we had a look around the property and we found an old shovel, which was good enough to dig a bit of dirt out from behind. But this, I think, probably brings back memories to, you know, old truck drivers that possibly would have even bought these when they were brand new in their day, or maybe younger people that their fathers would have either owned trucks like this or driven trucks like this. They were probably only small people when they rode around in the cabs with them. And it's been quite an adventure trying to drive something as old as this. I'm no expert truck driver, but I still had a bit of fun driving around the paddock, and fairly rough out there. One time it would have been a cultivation with something growing in it. It's probably been ploughed ground out there. So it was pretty rough to ride in. Of course, once they've got a trailer on the back and they load it up and everything, they're probably a bit smoother. They're out on a bitumen road. You know, it had quite a few problems there to really sort out. But at the end of the day, we just started at one end and we just worked our way through from one problem to the next until we got it good enough to run, then good enough to drive. And yeah, so I hope you've had as much fun watching as I did working on it and driving it round. If there's anyone out there that would have had any experience with these trucks, maybe people that are old truck drivers now that have been retired, they might be able to tell some stories about what they were like, what they did with them in their day. Leave a comment on my channel. It's always interesting to hear other people's stories. And you know, we'll probably pack our gear up now. I'll probably need a pretty good bath after this. I've had a bath in black oil now. I'll have to go home and see if I can get it off. But yeah, it's been well worth the adventure. And I'm sure the cameraman, you know, he's been right in the thick of it too. Can we get this undone? Can we get that undone? Can we lift this? Can we lift that? So yeah, I think both of us have had a fun time working on this project. We had to have a second go at it. We weren't really equipped. We should have had more spanners with us. And it's like all these sort of things you think, oh yeah, it won't take much. You know, we're pretty sure we've got enough gear to tackle what we're going to work on. By the time we were here a few hours, we thought we should have had this, we should have had that, but somehow we struggled by with what we had. And you know, we didn't even have a decent piece of fencing wire to tie the old spring up on the throttle, but we just had bits and pieces there, and somehow we made it work together, thinking out the problems. But I guess that's probably it for this particular adventure. So until next time, thanks very much for watching.